I'm gonna demo a few things, and then we'll see if Terry gets here, because I know Terry had a couple of things he wanted to talk about. So I will show you what I've been working on. So I don't know if you guys have probably noticed these banners up here and the show hide function. So when we have information, these values that we've added, that uses a data property, an HTML data property that's part of, I've completely blanked on the Bootstrap. It's the Bootstrap CSS designer. And so REDCap has Bootstrap built in, so we can actually use some of those tools. And so a few weeks ago, before the break, Tanya had asked me if there was a way for us to use the show hide functionality to get around some of the branching logic errors. So, because one of the issues that we have with branching logic is if you have a value, so this is just branching logic. You know, if we had, she had a long survey that was actually a bunch of separate surveys, and she wanted to be able to track when each survey was filled out, but she also wanted to collapse that survey so that way the person didn't have to scroll constantly and endlessly to get to surveys. The problem she found was that if she used branching logic, so let me just save this. We'll mark this as complete. We'll save and stay. She found that the problem with branching logic is that as soon as you try to hide it, it complains and it wants to clear out all the values that you've entered. And it either lets you do it or you just have to tell it no, that you don't want to, but then it goes through and it just sits there and bugs you, and then it finally lets you. So she and I had kind of looked at it to see if there was a way to, if this show hide functionality with Bootstrap would work. And so this is the same sort of form with Bootstrap. And I just have like 2 surveys here, 3 surveys here, just to mimic, like, this is how you would be scrolling through all these. If I mark these as complete, we'll hit save and stay. Now, if I hide the section, we don't get that error, because really it's just changing the display value for this group to, visible equals none, as opposed to visible equals true or display equals visible. I also have some code in here that has some branching logic up here that says that if all of these fields have a value in it, mark it as complete. That way, if you have all of these, long list of surveys, Tanya had like 15, 20 surveys in this project that she was working on. And this way, at a glance, you'd be able to see immediately which sections were filled out, which sections weren't. And it's really simple. So let me open up my folder here, because I had some notes that it's actually really easy. And when we upload this to the video website, I'll add this file as a as a template. That way you know what code to put behind it. Let me find this real quick. So this is really all of what you would need to hide and show your data. So the way I have this set is, and this right here is just a separate paragraph tag. That's what gives you the show hide button. And then this is the wrapper that you wrap around the section that you would put your fields in here. So if you did like an embedded field table like this, this is just HTML tables, you would just wrap all that in a div. So I'll put this up there. These, this is actually a lot easier than, so because you don't really need those, because those are for like screen readers. And really what it is an anchor tag that's creating the button, and I'm giving it a class of collapsed because it toggles between collapsed and show. And then this is just to create this as a button, so that way when I hover over the link anywhere, I can click anywhere. If I wanted to change it to a button with some actual padding, then it would give me that whole area. This href is the important thing because that is the link to this ID. So that way you could have multiple IDs. So here, this has a separate ID from this and this one. So that's the important thing, is you want to make sure this href matches this ID. And then the rest of this span stuff is just to like make the text look nice. So let me show you the designer that might make a little more sense. So I've created 3 embedded groups with all these fields. And then within the, actually I created one because I was able to put them all as one embedded group, but I have them as 3 separate tables. And you can see here that I have the data toggle, which is the Bluetooth, I keep trying to say Bluetooth, Bootstrap class. And so there's 2 ways that you can do it. And I need to update my notes because I changed it from the href to the data target because that's easier. But it's the same thing. That data target here for demographics is the same as this ID. So there's an ID for demographics. And then if we scroll down, you'll see there's another break for the table. And then this is data toggle for survey 2. And then there's another data toggle for survey 3. So if we build separate groups and we add different data toggles with the different IDs, then we can open and close multiple separate sections. And there is a code to where you can have multiple sections open or close at the same time. So if you wanted to collapse all or show all, it gets kind of tricky though, because if you collapse one section while the other ones are open, and then you hit show hide, what it does is it basically adds either collapse or show based on the value of that section. And so one is already collapsed, so it's going to change to show, and the other ones are going to change to collapse. So then you'll get this kind of accordion effect where one is opening while the others are closing, and back and forth, back and forth. So I wouldn't mess with that. It's just easier to do it one at a time. But you can see here that in the form, actually, let me go back to the record we had. If you open, so if I've collapsed everything, and then I go back to the record and I go back into the form, it automatically opens everything back up. So you don't have to, it's not going to remember your state, but it's nice because then you can close things and you're not going to come into a form that's automatically collapsed and you have to remember where you were or whatnot. It's just going to default to the regular display. Now let me show you the inspect tab, because this is where all of the changes happen. And so if I click show or hide, you'll see up here that the class for this div, this whole group, because this thing is wrapped in a div, a container. Now it's got a class of collapse, which shows it as hidden. And then if I click it again, it's going to change it to show. So that's how this data toggle works, is it's applying, using Bootstrap, it's applying those class attributes when I click on this link. So I hope that makes sense.